I want to make an argument here against capitalism on behalf of victims of crime, domestic violence, and other types of abuse. Through capitalist economic models and systems, government encourages the financial dependence of those too young, sick, disabled, or lacking the means of access to generate income to be dependent on those providing income through employment. This exchange system makes those depending on those persons who might be abusers critically vulnerable to the providers of that income and establishes an impasse should those providers become abusers. The dependents, including adult dependents, often become complicit protectors of their abusers because they fear a loss of material and financial sponsorship that would come with them calling for the initiation of an investigation that might lead to that person's arrest and prosecution. DFPS and law enforcement do not replace financial sponsorship from providers. It would be extraordinarily unwise for someone coming from abusive circumstances were their life not in danger. Someone who has financial needs, housing, car, education, healthcare, all those needs covered, to turn in their provider, who will then be arrested if proof is provided, and often simply bond out shortly thereafter anyway, with a temporary restraining order in place. That's the way the criminal justice system really works. Unless the charges are especially grievous, they usually release the abusers within a few hours, if not just a few days. They let them out on bond. The abuser may then lose their job, compromising material and financial provision that they previously provided to victims who were under their care or their depending on them. Who is really being punished in this situation I have described? The perpetrator or the victims who depend on those persons? Since government does not provide to replace for any of those lost means provided by abusers and people who are principal financial providers for head of household, there is no secondary 100% provision for survivors of abuse. This is the definition of madness. Government demands victims of abuse to inflict an indigent state on themselves, depriving themselves of support that will not be replaced in those areas where they will then find themselves lacking. If they cooperate with police and DFPS investigations, which, if enough evidence is found, they proceed to the prosecution of the guilty party. It is well understood that neither they nor police address the needs of crime victims and survivors in terms of income or any meaningful long-term provision. This is a critical, devastating failure by government, social services, and law enforcement. If the purpose of systems is to ensure protection of physical, mental, and emotional well-being of victims, then that purpose is completely defeated by this intentional lapse in public policy, which then leaves survivors of abuse bereft of resources and in abject poverty manufactured through their cooperation with authorities. Policy is drafted this way to keep people dependent on abusers that furnish the means to live while having potential to mistreat them and easily get away with it. Accountability and provision should not be choices that you have to choose between. Analyze what I've said. You'll come to understand there's no point of dissension here when it comes to thinking pragmatically about it. This isn't to say that people shouldn't go forward and report crimes that they've experienced or mistreatment. It's an argument to change provision policy for those persons who are survivors of such situation.